So I don't happen to think I'm a freak. I think that, some people have had deprecating attitudes over the years. Maybe because things like TV commercials are normal to them, and yeah, I don't know what else. Some of the middle class kind of shit. Well, I think I've been strange to some people, and also I can be kind of standoffish and not always understand when I'm being hurtful. All right, so I think about, you know, when I was in my 20s and a guy that I kind of was interested in, stop. But, I'm not romantic, but, I wanted to get to know him, but he happened to walk into the restaurant where I worked, and I was in there not working, but I was reading for a class. Garth stopped, and he was with another person, female, and he came over and he said, "Oh, she's just a friend." And I'm thinking, maybe not. She might not feel that way. And he asked me, "So what do you like to do?" And I said, "I don't go out much." And that was it. And I mean, you know, grew up differently, probably some differences in personality and things like that. But yeah, so, I was just thinking about the video I made last night about seeing the river, seeing the river and then looking to see if something had happened, and yes, someone had driven into it and drowned, you know, on Friday, and yesterday was Sunday, and I thought about sending it to a friend, but I just don't want to be disrespectful, and it's also kind of long. She works long days, you know, but I was sitting here and I'm like, you know, the past several years have been challenging, and people have challenges in their lives. It's like life is not easy, but being ditched, I mean, yeah, I try to make excuses for him. I think about the instability that was around us and all that, but it's harmful. It's not okay, and I struggle with that because for the most part, I keep my humor and uh, yeah. Did I need that in my life? No, there are plenty of things I have not needed in my life. I did not need that in my life. That has taken more than uh, how many years of my life? Well, if I want to count the year that we spent just being friends and doing stuff, I mean, it's taken 17 years of my life. So, yeah, how long were we together? 7.5 years. So, yeah, I mean, and what all did he take? Well, there are probably some financial kinds of things. I mean, he stopped paying on the mortgage and everything like that after he decided not to come home. And, I think I try not to think about it too much. But there are things like that. And also, the life experience. The life experience that allowed me to be there for him after he had been through some hell. Instead of having the grace to not ditch me and leave so abruptly, he just left. And I think about all the people who were impacted because yeah, I was helping people and I could have continued to do that. And I've said it before, hopefully I've helped people in the shop. It's a hopeless feeling sometimes. Am I doing enough? This person is in a really bad position, or this person has been through hell. Am I doing enough? I guess that kind of goes back to that question of am I enough? And there can be different little, you know, what kind of words, am I good enough? Am I this enough? Am I that enough? And well, yeah, I know I'm enough, and I know I'm not too much. I might be too much for some people, but I mean, if I want to be insulting, I could say if I'm too much for someone, that person's just kind of weak. I mean, that's a way of saying it without profanity. But you know what I have been missing from my life is not a relationship, it's community and spending time with family. And even with his family, I did things, even though I was insulted and all that, that just seems like kind of the mature thing to do, I suppose. But, I think about the, these challenges from fleeing domestic violence. And then, all right, well, I would go to the Unitarian church, but he and I, decades ago, went to a Unitarian conference thing together and worked in the kitchen. Well, sometimes things are just too overlapping socially, and so I moved. I tried to connect with people to continue doing what I was doing in Tennessee, and there was no way to do it. And yeah, so he did not only take from me, he took from people I could have helped. He also used what I had been through when I was in an abusive relationship. So I might have said this before, but I think, well, kind of he took advantage of the fact that I'd been raped. Okay, so yeah, I think so. I think a person can say that. And whether or not he has remorse, do I care? He's done so much harm, really. I can't say I care. What do I feel? Well, he's a person, and I want him to have a good life. I want him to be safe. I worry about his safety sometimes. I want him to have a good career. I want people to treat him with respect. He was born to be used. This save the marriage baby, that's not a good, it's not a good anything. That's two immature adults using a baby as a thing and using a child as a thing. All right, so yeah, well, I just sit here and I'm like, I mean, if I ever did want to be in a relationship again, what would that require? Because, you know, not everyone can tolerate someone like me, intuitive. So what would it take? And I think about in that relationship where we didn't get married, and his family rejected me, him asking me early on if I was a witch, am I? I'd like to be if I'm not, I think that would be useful sometimes, perhaps, if I'm not, what do I need to do? uh, I've already burned the candle at both ends. Yeah, working hard, reaching goals, and it just being kind of a dead end. And I think some of us just have that life. We're not made for the mainstream, uh, and it could probably destroy us to be pulled into it. But yeah, I'm just sitting and thinking, and I've been feeling kind of depressed today. And yeah, it could be my own feelings. The start of summer, it's not a real pleasant season. Rejection. Maybe I've had a stroke. There's plenty. I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one, and I think I have to remind myself of that. But that don't change what's been taken, and that don't change the attitudes about me. And I am ready to teach some lessons. But yeah, I just think about this. When you're thinking about relationships, for me, I don't know if I think about, I didn't date in high school. I had boyfriends a little bit in middle school where we held hands. When I was a young child, I had crushes, and I had at least one boyfriend. I would kiss his cheeks, yeah, until he pulled me out of the way of police cars when there was a parade in a small town in the mountains, and I was out in the street a little bit, and he pulled me out of the street, and I wouldn't talk to him anymore. So yeah, but I mean, I've been single a lot, and I have no problem with that, but I have no in-person community, and I'm not as much a joiner as I am a starter. So yeah, it's a little bit of a hell in some ways, and I'm sure there are people like me out there, but it's like these times when you're just kind of fucking waiting. It's like, yeah, am I gonna survive? Well, the few people I care about have died. Some of them when we were teenagers, some of them more recently. And I fucking refuse to give up my life. I fucking refuse to give up my life. And yeah, wouldn't it be convenient for some people if I did die? They'd have more of this or that. They wouldn't have to worry about you know, yeah, my sister might say something I don't like. My daughter might say something I don't like. My cousin might say something I don't like. Well, that's, I'm not going to say that's a good reason to stay alive. But yeah, I do say what I think. I say what I think. And, so much of what I have said has been caring. But how can I continue to, I mean, with several years of isolation, not being invited for holidays and things like that, it's like, wow, I mean, really, I wonder what you expect. Are you trying to elicit hostility? Because I don't want to be like that. But, I have some roots here. And, uh, and yeah, learn some manners. I have said that to a sister-in-law. The other one here, I don't feel the need to say anything like that. All right. But I don't understand. I don't understand what some people were doing. Well, I was trying to recover from domestic violence and being harmed 2 years later, trying to put my life together and regain dignity and things like that. What the hell happened? You know, we never wanted her and we don't want her now. Yeah. Well, anyway, community. I guess some of us are just kind of like me. Are we outsiders? Hopefully, we help inspire people who are like us. And help give people the support to keep going. It does not take much. It just doesn't take much. Sometimes all it takes is a smile. Something to laugh about. A word of encouragement. Just acknowledgement of being a human. And yeah, well, I just wonder, community. What would I really like? It would be real nice to be with creative people who don't take advantage of each other. Does it have to be creative people? Well, I'm not sure people who aren't understand me, and creative people are often intuitive. So, yeah, and then yeah, if I think about, I'm glad I'm happy single. I never wanted to get married. As a teenager, I knew I did not want to get married, and I didn't want children. It's like I'm being punished for not having children, and yeah, I don't know what's happened. But, well, maybe nothing. Maybe all along things were the way they were and I just didn't know it. But yeah, well, what I was going to say is, if you're like me and a little bit, people say things to you like, are you a witch? And I think about my second, it's really almost I don't want to say a joke, but thinking about getting married the second time, him telling me that his family was encouraging him to use me from the start, thinking about, him and I having plans to meet for dinner when we were friends and him not showing up. Me driving all the way into town, 30, 45 minutes to meet him for dinner and he didn't show up. Setting a limit and saying that's not good friend behavior, and then him bringing me a gift, something he had made, and yeah, put your defenses down. I saw a video recently where someone talked about flying somewhere to spend a weekend with someone, and it was manipulative, but I think, I don't know how many years it took her to realize that, but I know it was bad. And yeah, well, so again, 17 years of my life. 17 years of my life. You know, if I were going to charge for that, how much would I charge? You know, that's not me. But you know, everyone matters. Everyone matters. People should not use each other. And yeah, you know, what does it take when you're outside the mainstream? You know, do you ever kind of wonder, you know, I mean, I don't know. I just, you know, I hope that while I'm putting my life back together, good things are happening for people other than